he made sure the door was locked. He would check it twice, sometimes 3 times, running his hand over the cold metal chain, pressing the deadbolt until it clicked. His wife was always there when he turned off the light. He would lie beside her, listening to the slow rhythm of her breathing until sleep finally took him. And every morning, she was gone. At first, he thought she was slipping out while he slept, but the lock never moved. The chain stayed in place. The deadbolt remained turned. No one could have passed through it. He told himself it was sleepwalking, maybe something else he couldn't explain, but the strangeness lingered, gnawed at him. He needed proof. So he set up cameras in the bedroom, one facing the bed, another aimed at the door. The footage did not show her walking out. She didn't even stir. She lay still until, slowly, her body unraveled, threads of mist pulling apart from her skin, drifting upward until there was nothing left of her at all. And he never heard a sound.
Hi, welcome back. Or if it's your first time here, I'm really glad you stopped by. Tonight, we have a story that'll make you question the safety of even your own locked doors. A man swears he locks up every night, yet every morning, his wife is gone. At first, he thinks it's harmless sleepwalking, but what the cameras capture is far more disturbing than anything he could imagine. So dim the lights, grab your snacks, get comfortable, and prepare yourself. Ready? Let's begin.
The man's name was Daniel. He lived with his wife, Claire, in a modest 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city. It wasn't much, just a place with thin walls and a constant hum of traffic outside the window, but they had made it theirs. Photographs lined the shelves. A faint smell of lavender from Claire's diffuser clung to the air, and every night, without fail, Daniel locked the door before they went to sleep. He was meticulous about it. Deadbolt, chain, latch. He checked twice sometimes, especially when he couldn't quiet his restless thoughts. Yet every morning, Claire was gone. The first few times it happened, he convinced himself she had simply gotten up early, gone for a walk, maybe stopped at the cafe around the corner like she sometimes did. But when he asked her about it, she looked at him with mild confusion, as though the question itself were strange. She never remembered leaving. She never had coffee in her hand when she returned. And strangest of all, the door was always locked, bolted, chained, exactly as he had left it. At first, he thought he was losing his mind. He began writing things down. He kept a small notebook on the nightstand, jotting down the time he went to sleep, the position of Claire beside him, the way the chain sounded when he slid it into place. He scrawled his own signature across the page like proof that he had seen her there, that he wasn't imagining it. But every morning, without fail, he awoke alone. The pillow beside him indented, the sheets pulled back, her scent fading. The pattern gnawed at him until he could no longer ignore it. He bought cameras. He told Claire it was for safety. Break-ins had been happening in their neighborhood. She didn't protest. In fact, she seemed strangely indifferent, almost detached, as if the idea of watching themselves sleep didn't concern her in the slightest. He set them up carefully. One pointed at the door, another by the window, a third fixed on their bed. He tested the angles, adjusted the timestamps. He wanted no room for error, no shadows to hide in. That night, he lay beside her, listening to the rhythm of her breathing, eyes wide in the dark until exhaustion pulled him under. In the morning, she was gone. He went straight to the laptop. His hand shook as he scrubbed through the footage. Hours passed in seconds, the faint glow of the room shifting with the night. Claire lay beside him, unmoving, until she shifted. Her body tensed, her breathing slowed until her chest seemed not to rise at all. Then her skin seemed to shimmer, faint and translucent. He blinked at the screen, leaning closer. Her outline blurred, like steam rising from hot water. Her hair melted into wisps of smoke. Her hands dissolved into pale tendrils. Within moments, she was gone, reduced to nothing but mist curling upward, fading into the shadows of the room. The blanket sagged where she had been, but there was no sound, no door creaking open, no chain sliding back. Daniel sat back, mouth dry. He replayed the footage again and again, searching for some glitch, some artifact of the camera, but it was the same each time. Claire hadn't left, she had unraveled. When she came back later that morning, she was cheerful, almost too cheerful, as if nothing had happened. She hummed softly as she moved around the kitchen, frying eggs, buttering toast. Daniel stared at her across the table, her face illuminated by the morning light, perfectly solid, perfectly normal. "Did you sleep well?" she asked, smiling faintly. He wanted to scream. He wanted to grab her by the shoulders and demand an explanation, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he muttered something about work, forced a bite of toast, and
Days passed. Each night, he locked the door. Each night, she disappeared. Each morning, she returned. He stopped sleeping. He sat awake, watching her, watching the cameras. Sometimes, just before it happened, he thought he saw her eyes open, staring blankly at the ceiling. Not at him, not at anything, just wide and unblinking as her body began to unravel. He tried to touch her once, reaching out as her arm began to waver into smoke. His hand passed through her, cold and damp, as if through fog. He yanked it back in horror, and the mist swirled violently before dissipating. She was gone. He stopped trying to touch her after that. The apartment became unbearable. Every corner seemed to hum with unease. The locks on the door, once reassuring, now felt meaningless. He left the cameras running constantly, filling hard drive after hard drive with hours of footage he couldn't bring himself to delete. He filled notebooks with frantic scribbles, times, dates, descriptions of the way her body dissolved, notes about the way she returned. But the entries blurred together, endless repetitions of the same impossible event. He began to notice changes in her, subtle at first. She moved more quietly, her footsteps barely audible. Sometimes when he spoke to her, she paused a beat too long before responding, as though translating the words in her head. Her smile seemed thinner, stretched too tightly, and at night, when she lay beside him, he swore her skin felt colder. The more he watched, the less he recognized her.
One evening, unable to contain himself, he confronted her. "Where do you go?" he asked suddenly, as she brushed her hair in the mirror. She froze, the brush mid-stroke. "What do you mean?" "Every night, you disappear." Her reflection caught his eyes, and for a moment he thought he saw the faintest shimmer ripple across her face. Then it was gone, replaced with her usual calm expression. "You've been working too much," she said softly. "You're tired." But her eyes didn't match the softness of her voice. They were flat, unblinking, watchful. Daniel slept less and less. He drank too much coffee, sat up until dawn with the footage playing on repeat. His notebooks filled the desk, his handwriting becoming jagged, frantic. He began skipping work, ignoring calls from friends, shutting himself inside the apartment as if it were the only place that mattered. The outside world blurred into irrelevance. One night, as the clock ticked past 3, he saw something new. Claire dissolved as usual, her body unraveling into mist, but this time the mist didn't vanish. It lingered,
swirling in the corner of the room like a living thing. The camera caught its slow movement, tendrils stretching along the ceiling, seeping into the cracks of the door. He stared at the screen, heart hammering, and then on the footage, he saw himself. The mist hovered over his sleeping body, curling around his head, sliding into his open mouth, his nostrils. He twitched in his sleep but didn't wake. The tendrils disappeared inside him, and the mist thinned until nothing remained. Daniel recoiled from the laptop, bile rising in his throat. He didn't remember any of it. He didn't feel different, but the thought of something moving inside him, unseen, filled him with a sick dread. In the morning, Claire returned as always. She kissed his cheek, her lips cold, her breath faintly damp, like fog against his skin. He wanted to run. He wanted to leave the apartment, leave her, leave everything. But when he looked at the door, the Lux stared at him, solid and unmoved. He knew that leaving wasn't an option anymore. Nights became unbearable. Sometimes he woke to find her sitting upright in bed, eyes open, face expressionless. Other times he dreamed. Dreams where he was walking through endless hallways filled with smoke, where voices whispered in the dark, calling his name. He woke drenched in sweat, unsure where the dream ended and reality began. The notebooks grew erratic. His entries shifted from observations to questions. Who are you? What are you? How long has this been happening? He began to doubt his own memory, wondering if she had always been this way, if he had simply never noticed. One night, he unplugged the cameras. He couldn't bear to watch anymore. But the silence was worse. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, he felt every second stretch into eternity. When the mattress dipped beside him, he knew she was there, but he dared not look. He shut his eyes, trying to pretend she was just sleeping, just breathing, just human. But he couldn't ignore the sound, a faint hiss, like air escaping. He opened his eyes and saw the ceiling ripple with shadows. Mist crawled across the walls, curling around him, pressing cold against his skin. He sat up, gasping, but the room was empty. Claire wasn't in bed. She wasn't anywhere. The locks on the door were still fastened. He sat in the dark, trembling, until dawn. From that night on, he stopped sleeping entirely.
By the time his neighbors reported the smell, the apartment had been sealed for days. The police found the door locked from the inside, chains still in place. The windows were bolted shut. Yet there was no sign of Daniel, only his notebooks, filled with frantic, looping handwriting, page after page scrawled with the same words. She dissolves, she returns. She dissolves, she returns. On the final page, one sentence stood alone, etched so deeply into the paper the pen tore through it. I think I'm dissolving too. As for Claire, no one could say. Some neighbors swore they still saw her in the hall, pale and quiet, moving without sound. But the apartment remained locked. And in the mornings, when the light hit the windows just right, mist seemed to curl against the glass, as though something inside was waiting to get out.
Some doors are meant to keep the world out. Others are meant to keep what's inside from getting loose. If you enjoyed tonight's story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next time we open the door to something you wish you hadn't seen.